Good morning, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for July 2014, around 8:05 in Billerica, Massachusetts. Going to be another nice and sunny day in the high 70s and low 80s with low humidity. Perfect summertime weather. Some news to report. The Boston Red Sox beat the Kansas City Royals by a score of 5-4 last night at Fenway Park. And also, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim acquire Houston Street from the San Diego Padres for 3 minor leaguers. The Angels are beefing up for a stretch run to make the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, and this is a good move. We'll see more moves in the next 11 days because the Major League Baseball trading deadline for non-waiver is July 31st, so there'll be a lot of moving going around. My first video subject of the day is about something that happened 28 years ago that started one of the most famous pro wrestling feuds of all time. I'm talking about Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff turning against WWE Champion Hulk Hogan in a tag team match against King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd on WWE Championship Wrestling. This started like months prior because Hogan and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff were teaming up together, and they were facing off against Rowdy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton on house shows throughout the country, and a lot of people, especially adorable Adrian Adonis, was accusing Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff of growing soft by teaming with Hulk Hogan. He actually called him Hulk Jr., and on an interview segment on Adrian Adonis's talk show, The Flower Shop, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff says, "So what if Hogan gets more attention? So what if he sells more merchandise? I'm doing the hard work when I'm teaming with him." And then next week, Bundy and Studd's manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan, was on The Flower Shop with Adrian Adonis, and he was mocking Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff again, saying, "Hulk Jr., if you're so confident, I bet you and the Hulk should sign up for a tag team match against Studd and Bundy." And Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff says, "I only have to make one phone call to Hulk Hogan in Tampa, Florida." And when he makes the phone call, Hogan doesn't answer. And then the next week on The Flower Shop, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Hulk Hogan are on, and Adonis answers his question, "So are you ready to accept the challenge from Studd and Bundy?" And Hogan says yes, but Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff says, "No, there's been a change of plans. I have accepted a contract to face the Moondogs." And Hogan says, "That's great. We could have the Moondogs first, and then we'll have Studd and Bundy the next week." And then the next week it was Hulk Hogan and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff against the Moondogs, and Paul Orndorff beat the Moondogs single-handedly without Hogan coming into the ring. And Hogan was a little mad about that because he says Orndorff was struggling a little bit when he was wrestling the Moondogs, but this would set up with a tag team match between Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Hulk Hogan against Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy. And before the tag team match with Studd and Bundy, Hogan and Mr. Wonderful were in the dressing room preparing for the match, and Hogan was saying, "Just calm down, forget about the phone call, let's focus, let's have the old Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff back." And Orndorff says, "I am ready, I am so ready." And then they go out to the ring and have the match. Orndorff starts first, and he dominates King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd, delivers drop kicks to them and tries to body slam Big John Studd, and he couldn't, but he continues to dominate. So about 6-7 minutes in the match, he tags in Hogan, and Hogan starts out for ball fire with Studd and Bundy, but then Hogan was getting in trouble. Mr. Wonderful was trying to tag me back in, tag me back in. Studd then throws Hogan back, and then Hogan's elbow accidentally hits Mr. Wonderful in the head, the eye, inadvertently sends Mr. Wonderful to the floor at Hulk, and then Hogan being double teamed by Studd and Bundy, and then the referee gets thrown out, and Mr. Wonderful climbs back into the ring apron, and he's holding his eye. He thought he hurt his eye, and then the referee disqualifies him, and then Mr. Wonderful finally comes back in and punches Studd and Bundy, and then clears the ring of them, but Studd and Bundy and Bobby the Brain Heenan do not leave the ringside area, and then Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff holds Hogan, raises their hand, and they win the match, but then Mr. Wonderful delivers a clothesline to Hogan, knocking him down, and delivering the pile driver, knocking Hogan out, and then Mr. Wonderful gets booed by the crowd, mocking Hogan like this, and then he fights Studd and Bundy to come in, but just as about Studd and Bundy to come in, several wrestlers come in, including King Tonga, Civiafi, Mike Rotundo, and Golden Boy Danny Spivey to prevent from serious injury. Then Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff walks with Studd and Bundy and Heenan back to the dressing room area, and then they're greeted by adorable Adrian Adonis and Jimmy the Mouth of South Hart, Adonis' manager, and they were cheering, and the announcers, Vince McMahon and Bruno Sammartino, says this is a setup, and all the heels were saying, wonderful, 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 wonderful. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was the first wrestler to turn on Hulk Hogan on television, and he was the first of many, and this sparked a great feud, one of the best feuds in WWE history, most profitable feuds. This was the feud of the year in 1986 for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And the first big match Hogan and Mr. Wonderful had was the big event in Toronto at the old Exhibition Stadium, which was home of the Blue Jays, which drew 78,000 fans, which was a attendance record for a pro wrestling event to date, and that might be legitimate than the one that they said in Pontiac Silverdome and WrestleMania 23 at Ford Field. And Hogan beat Orndorff by DQ with interference and hearing, and then they have a big house show all over the WWE where there was no decisive winner. There was disqualifications, countouts, time limit draws, double DQs, double countouts, and then this was more profitable. They went to all the major arenas, and then they sold out, and these things. Then they started the steel cage feud, which they went all over the country. In Bobby Heenan's book that he wrote in 2002, they would have one steel cage match at a house show in New York City. Then once they finished that, they went on a private jet, flew to Chicago or Detroit and did the same thing the same night for years. And it also culminated in a steel cage match on Saturday night's main event in January of 1987, where Hogan and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff fought in a steel cage match, and both of them climbed the steel cage, and both of them touched the floor at the same time. One referee, Joey Morello, said Hogan won. The other referee, Danny Davids, who was a heel referee, had Mr. Wonderful won, and they thought Mr. Wonderful was new WWE champion, but the ring announcer says it was a draw, so they had to go back in, and then Hogan won the steel cage match, and that put the end to that feud, and it was one of the most profitable feuds of all time in the WWE for a 6-month period. But halfway through that feud, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff severely injured his arm while lifting weights, training, and he was in the middle of the feud, so he could not take time off to have surgery on it, and that because he would lost big money, and they would have had to put somebody else in, and it caused nerve damage, severely damaged. I think that arm's very shorter than his other arm. He had to take time off after this feud was over. He actually blamed Hogan for not asking the feud to stop in real life and stuff like that. And this was, I think, probably the best WWE feud, most profitable WWE feud of up to like that point in 1986 and 1987, and this was the feud that probably made Hulk Hogan like as a great champion being in this feud, because before, when he was during his run as champion, he didn't have any made big feuds like the one he had Mr. Wonderful. He had feud with Piper and Bundy, but they were like maybe major at best, but they weren't as profitable as the one with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Eventually, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff took some time off and had a reduced schedule in the WWE. When he came back, he fired Bobby the Brain Heenan as manager and hired Sir Oliver Humperdinck and became a face. And he was, coincidentally, he was on in the Survivor Series 1987, the first Survivor Series. He was tag team partners with Hulk Hogan, along with Don the Rock Morocco, Ken Patera, and Bam Bam Bigelow. They faced off against Andre the Giant, Ravishing Rick Rude, King Kong Bundy, One Man Gang, and the Natural Bruce Lee. But that was Mr. Wonderful Swain's son in the WWE, because he would disappear. They thought, and for 2 years he didn't even wrestle. There was rumors he was dead and stuff like that. He actually ran a bowling alley. Then Mr. Wonderful came back to wrestle in WCW in 1990 with the dudes with attitudes, with Sting and Junkyard Dog and the Steiners as part of that group, but it didn't last for that long because Mr. Wonderful got fired from WCW for some stupid reason, and then back went to the independent circus, Smoky Mountain Wrestling in 1992 when he turned heel again, which is much better than a heel. Then he went back to WCW in 1993. He became the TV champion. He feuded. He had like a tag team with Pretty Wonderful, with Pretty Paul Roman. They won multiple WCW tag team titles, but he actually, in 1995, went on the booking committee with WCW, and the injuries to his neck and arm were getting so much. He was actually involved in a backstage fight with Vader in August of 1995 that got Vader fired from WCW. Mr. Wonderful's career ended in December 1995 because he needed major neck surgery, and there was an angle with a 4 horsemen like delivered a pile driver to him on Monday Nitro, and that ended his career. I thought he was going to come back as a face and feud with the 4 horsemen, but that never came to be. And Orndorff, worked backstage with WCW as a trainer and a booker until they folded in 2001. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff became our WWE Hall of Fame in 2005, and he in 2009 he was diagnosed with cancer, but battled cancer, and he's cancer free right now, which is good. So prayers to Paul Orndorff, and this feud was probably one of the best. In future blogs, I'm going to chronicle more Hogan turns of wrestlers who turned on Hogan, like Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Bruce the Barber Beefcake. And we'll be back later on with more of these blogs. Have a good day, Facebook friends and YouTube followers.